Imagine looking at a simple red apple. When you focus on it, there is an intuitive feeling that a you exists somewhere behind your eyes, watching that red shape as if it were projected on a screen. This is the Cartesian theater, a concept tracing back to the 17th century philosopher René Descartes. It is the assumption that the brain features a main stage, where an inner observer sits in the audience and watches the movie of our lives. Philosophers call the magic of that movie qualia. It's the idea that there is a private, unobservable essence to experience, the redness of the red that exists apart from the physics of light or the firing of neurons. This leads to the philosophical zombie, a hypothetical creature that looks, acts, and speaks exactly like a human, but has no inner observer. On the outside, it's identical to you. On the inside, there is no movie playing. This intuition is a trap. If we accept that consciousness is a magical, unobservable layer sitting on top of our biology, we are effectively stating that science can never explain who we are. Many modern philosophers use the zombie and qualia concepts to protect this mystery. They argue that the feeling of the mind is a special category that can never be reduced to the movement of atoms or the chemistry of cells. But we only apply this logic to ourselves. When we study the biology of a whale or a primate, we don't look for a hidden inner observer to explain their behavior. We assume their brains do the work. Daniel Dennett spent his life fighting this double standard. He challenged what he called folk psychology, the collection of unscientific shortcuts we use to describe our own minds. To Dennett, calling consciousness an unsolvable mystery wasn't a profound insight. He saw it as intellectual laziness, a refusal to follow the biological evidence to its conclusion. To understand our own minds, we have to move past these medieval intuitions and view the brain as a complex biological machine. If there is no theater, how does the brain produce an experience? Dennett pointed to the multiple drafts model, often called a global neuronal workspace. Inside your brain, neurons handle localized tasks, like identifying shapes or sounds, in the dark, without any central CEO. When one signal becomes strong enough to influence the network, it achieves cerebral celebrity, communicating its data across the entire brain at once. This broad access is what we mistake for a feeling. When a signal wins this popularity contest, it becomes available to your memory, your speech centers, and your motor controls all at once. That total system-wide availability is the experience. There is no second magical step where a soul feels the data. Consciousness is the physical state of data winning a broadcast competition. This replaces the magical inner observer with a measurable, mechanical process. Critics try to save the magic with the story of Mary, a scientist who knows every physical fact about the color red, but has lived entirely in a black and white room. They claim that when she finally sees a red apple, she learns something new, a subjective feeling science couldn't capture. Dennett countered with Robo-Mary. If we program a cyborg's neural pathways to perfectly match the physical state of a brain seeing red, she wouldn't be surprised by the apple. Her system already contains the data that produces the feeling. We struggle to imagine this because our imagination is limited. It's like the torn Jell-O box used by the Rosenberg spies to verify their identities. To a human, duplicating that jagged edge seems impossible, but it is a physical reality that can be measured and replicated. You can see the limits of your own inner theater in this video. A large cabinet is rapidly changing color as the images flip, yet most people miss it. This is change blindness. If you had a soul-level view of the world, you would see the change instantly. Instead, you only see what your neural network broadcasts. Gaps like change blindness or Capgras delusion are just mechanical errors in that neural pipeline. Subjective experience reveals itself as a physical pipeline of data, prone to the same mechanical glitches as any other hardware. If the inner observer is a mechanical illusion, why are we so certain it's real? Why does it feel so much like there is a me in here? Dennett proposed heterophenomenology. He argued that science shouldn't look for the soul, it should explain why humans insist they have one. The data isn't the soul, it's the human report of the soul. He called this the fantasy echo. It's an episodic memory loop. Because humans have language, we can describe our own neural states to ourselves, creating a feedback loop that feels like a solid, unified entity. We are constantly bouncing linguistic and cultural stimuli back into our sensory networks. This repetitive internal talk creates the mirage of a self that sits behind the wheel. This shifts the focus of cognitive science from trying to find a ghost in the machine to explaining the machine's own report of a ghost. If an artificial intelligence were designed with this same internal feedback loop, constantly echoing its own states back to itself, we would expect it to eventually claim it has a soul too. Dennett spent his life making these arguments, patiently explaining to the world that we don't need magic to be special. With his passing in April 2024, science lost one of its most dedicated defenders against those who prefer mystery over mapping. Understanding that we are complex biological machines doesn't take away our humanity. We are simply machines made of meat that have learned to tell ourselves a very convincing story. Leaving the illusion of the soul behind is the final step in growing up. It is how we finally begin to see what we actually are.